want to delve into some topics about men. And I want to start with this question, which is kind of broad, and just kind of take it from here. And that is, John, in all of your years of work in working with individuals and couples, what do you think might be one or two of the biggest like misunderstandings or misperceptions or things that women don't understand about men that would really help them overall in their relationships with men?
Well, right off the bat, one of the things is to realize that men don't understand women. When men say things and do things, women interpret it as if he meant to say that and hurt my feelings. He just doesn't know how men and women are different. And it's wonderful to have this conversation to explore and understand men better. But the first step is to realize men don't understand women. And second step is to realize that men react to things, generally speaking, very differently from women, particularly when men are coping with stress. Ironically, if you're like feeling really happy and fulfilled and your stress levels are low and you had a good night's sleep and you ate something good that day, so you're in balance. Men and women aren't that different because we tend to be, very relatable. I can relate to that. I'm open to that. But as soon as men and women start to experience stress or disappointment or frustration, and that frustration could just simply be he doesn't know what she needs. And that's very important. If you recognize that somebody doesn't mean to do something, it has a different reaction than you feel they purposely did it. There was a study done on, there's lots of studies on this, but one was on in India on boats. Now, I remember being on China and I was on this lake and tourists could go on a boat, but we don't know how to drive boats. They're slow moving boats, but they don't turn quickly. So without experience, you can easily bump somebody's boat. Well, if you bump somebody's boat, nobody gets upset about it because we all know we don't know how to ride boats. But if somebody knows how to drive a boat and they bump your boat, then they did it intentionally, then you have a big reaction. So intention is really, really key to how we react to each other. And we have to realize that much of the time we think our partners are intentionally not being loving when actually they're just having a normal reaction that has nothing to do with you. So we'll explore those different reactions as well. But the key thing is to realize that men and women react differently to situations. They have different priorities than each other. For example, to feel loved. Many men don't need a lot of affection. Instead, they would want more sex. If you just look commonly, there's always exceptions to everything I say, but men are designed to go for the sex to a certain extent, more than women. And women are going to go for more safety, security, affection, warmth, and men don't necessarily relate to that. And now let's bring it down to a biological level. The hormone that makes men feel good, that creates well-being in men, is testosterone. He needs 10 times more than women, and women need 10 times more estrogen than men. Now, that's really important. Estrogen's more about feelings and emotions and intuition and relationship, and testosterone is more about sacrifice, overcoming hurdles, solving problems, facing challenges, feeling successful. So not that women don't thrive when they're successful, they're making testosterone, except women need to make more estrogen, and estrogen can push testosterone down, and testosterone can push estrogen down. So they, like a seesaw, they balance each other. And that's why I mentioned when we're kind of in balance within ourselves of the masculine qualities and our feminine qualities, then men and women are pretty much able to relate to each other. But when life throws us a curveball and we're feeling stressed, disappointed, unhappy about something, women have a primary need to produce more estrogen. Men have a primary need to produce more testosterone. How do you produce testosterone if you're a man? Well, one way is to disconnect from anything that produces estrogen, which would be his girlfriend or his wife. So that's called men's cave time. And for women, when she's experiencing stress, to feel good, one of the things that raises estrogen is connection, talking, sharing. And he's pulling away from talking and sharing to feel better, and she's wanting to talk more to feel better. So without an understanding, we end up stepping on each other's toes all the time. And then we conclude it must have been intentional, and we get upset rather than be understanding of nobody's meaning to upset each other. And our behaviors don't mean we don't love each other. It's just sometimes we have to behave the way we need to behave for ourselves to feel good so that we can give more affection and warmth. So bottom line, I was about to say, where women will want more affection. Why? Because biologically, if she needs more estrogen, by affection will increase a hormone called oxytocin, which will then allow estrogen to go up. And for men, oxytocin doesn't increase testosterone. So we don't have a drive towards oxytocin. We can learn to do it as a way of connecting with a woman. And if we realize that by connecting with her through affection, we're actually helping her and making her feel good, then we're being successful. And then being affectionate can raise testosterone. But a man has to understand, he just doesn't understand how important affection is. And women will often say, well, he was very affectionate in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I laugh and I say, that's because he can only touch your shoulder and your hands and your head.
Right.
He's got his gradually get to the other stuff. And then he thinks, why touch the hands and the head and the shoulders? You know, what's the big deal with hugs? But he can learn.
Right. Well, this is so fascinating, John. This is so fascinating. I love that you started with this, that men don't really understand women, because here we're trying to understand men. But if we understand that men don't understand women, that's a real gateway, isn't it?
It's a huge gateway because it realizes something very important. You can't just expect a man to do all the things that you fantasize about, but you can gradually train him to give you the kinds of things that you would like. Now, some men come with training to a certain extent because they saw their fathers do it. But when they didn't see their fathers do it, then they may do the right things for a little while because it's biological that and logical for a man. When he's first meeting a woman, he's going to ask more questions, you know, because he wants to get to know you. But then once he gets to know you, then why do I need to ask questions anymore? What's the point? In the beginning, he'll do lots of little things. He'll do compliments, for example. And, oh, you look so beautiful. Oh, I can't wait to see you again. And then he stops. But why does he stop? Because he's already told you that he likes you. So why do I have to do it again? And the third thing is, why do I even have to tell you when my actions should reveal to you? You know, there's that old 60s song, which is all in his kiss, but it's actually in his actions. What a man does says a lot more than what his feelings are for you. If he's calling you up, if he's planning dates, if he's attentive to you, he's interested, okay? He likes you, but he may not want to say, I like you. And then ultimately comes that big question of some women will have, well, I really love him, but he doesn't say he loves me. Why doesn't he say he loves me or he's in love with me? And men have a big stop sign quite often because we've been in relationships before and we felt love and we might have communicated love. And then when the relationship ended, the woman said, but you love me, as if saying I love you means I want to marry you. It doesn't, okay? And he knows that. He may feel love, but he doesn't want to say it because quite often when you say it, his experience is many women will feel, but you promised. He didn't promise anything. And we'll take it to a whole nother level of, you know, when it comes to sex. Quite often a woman, now modern women, a lot of them don't have this, but still this pervades, it's still out there, is that if a man has sex with you, then that must mean he's being monogamous with you. And it doesn't mean that at all. And it doesn't mean he wants a relationship with you. Because when we talk about understanding men look, it's like a part of our brain that regulates sex is very unconscious. It's the one part of our body that's most vulnerable that we can't control. It just happens. And so it turns on and turns off. And so therefore it's regulated by the unconscious mind. And when the unconscious mind gets signals from a woman that she would be open to having sex with us, or she's interested in having sex with us, the unconscious brain suddenly creates sexual attraction with no filters, no requirements. It's just simply an available woman who's interested in us. And depending upon what day of the week it is, which is how horny we might be, because we have certain needs to experience sexuality that we feel very strongly. Not all women do feel it so strongly. What they'll do is when they feel safe, when they feel a man is interested in her, her estrogen levels will start to rise, and then that puts her in the mood. Whereas, so she has way more requirements. Now, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because if thousands of years, if a woman was just to have sex with anybody and have a baby, well, that wouldn't be smart. You want to make sure you filter out all the guys that are not that interested in you to follow through as fathers if you're going to have a baby. Whereas today with birth control, that's women can say, well, that doesn't matter anymore, except that we've got a whole hormonal system that's built up that adapted for civilization and evolution and so forth. And so women have more requirements before they're going to feel sexual. Men have very few requirements to feel sexual, except a green light.
Right.
and
a green light in a place, maybe, right?
What was that again?
I said a green light and maybe a place.
A place. You're right. You'll find a place. And it's not that we're all that superficial, but the urges are that superficial. They're animal. Okay. We're animals in a sense, and not just men, but women are animals too. That most of our brain is monkey brain. And then we have this human brain on top of it. But the sex drive is activated from the most animal part of our brain, the most unconscious, instinctive part of our brain. Now, certainly we can choose where we have sex and who we have sex with. And, for me as an adult who's grown up and so forth, a mature adult, I would have many more requirements. Being in a monogamous relationship for 34 years, you bond through love and through service and commitment such that you're not even turned on to any other women if they want to have sex with you or not, because you've bonded with your partner. And why would I eat at McDonald's when I have steak dinner at home?
Mm-hmm.
T-bone at home. Why do I have to go there? If that's what men wake up to as they mature, is that the purpose of sex as a human, not just a monkey, the purpose of sex is to make love. It actually allows you to bond more with your partner. And women often feel a great need for love, that they need love and relationship and so forth, particularly because those things produce estrogen. But we know biologically when her estrogen levels go very, very high, then her testosterone levels will surge. And then she feels a strong desire for sex, which would be different in different women, but it tends to be the prerequisite is high estrogen before the sex drive comes up. And for men, there's no prerequisite, opportunity, testosterone goes up. So all of that to say that just because a man wants to have sex with you doesn't mean he's at all interested in having a relationship with you. And it's not like he's even pretending to want a relationship with you. He's just not thinking in the future. He's going like right now, let's be in the moment and let's love each other. Let's have sex together. And he might even feel while he's so aroused that he wants to marry you. And this is, I was just listening to a song about the fun things we did in Las Vegas. And I even proposed to a woman, the guy was saying, because he was drunk. But when the estrogen levels through sex start to go high inside of men can feel temporarily that they want to have a relationship. But as soon as his testosterone drops right after sex, then that all goes away. So another thing about understanding men is when they're not before they have sex with you, that's the best time to get the bond, because he's got this strong desire that's motivating everything in the background, and it sort of moves him close to you. And once he has sex with you, it drops. And sometimes it could be 3 or 4 times that weekend, and you're all so excited, and then he doesn't call you and you wonder what happened. You didn't bond yet in the heart or in the mind. There's nothing bonding you, because once a man finishes sex, the physical bonding is temporarily gone. When he has the sex, testosterone goes way up, but then afterwards it goes back down to baseline. So you want to make sure while it's at baseline that he's bonding with you, and both by hearing you, by liking you, by respecting you, by doing things for you. And this is another key thing about men, is when they do things for you, that's how they bond with you, is that your response, when your response to man is, oh, that really feels good. Or, oh, how wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Oh, that movie was so great. Oh, we had such a good time. That's your response to him providing something for you. That's how men bond. It's a feeling of success. And hormonally, what's happening is his testosterone shooting up in your presence. So likewise, if he doesn't feel successful with you, he'll lose interest. He has to get a response. Now, the reason I say this is because many times women are trying to be successful in pleasing a man by doing things for him, when really what you need to do that will help a man bond with you more is focus on your most authentic, loving responses to what he says and does. And I'm not saying fake it. I'm saying your authentic, loving responses. And here's a few that will win every man over. So it's
listen
like
up, ladies.
when you're on a date and you're talking to him, or you're married and your husband's talking, before you say something of a different point of view, if you have a different point of view, and you should, you shouldn't always just agree with everything they say. Differences is what creates attraction. As long as the differences are not trying to put down or change, or might sound like it's critical of him. So the phrases are simply, you listen, you say, well, that's a good idea. Now you might be thinking that all the time, but saying it is a big deal to a man. Just like a man might be thinking, this is my wife, I love her, but doesn't always say to her. So it's like you have to learn, whenever you have these positive thoughts and feelings in response to him, put them out. It makes a difference. The phrase, I give you 3 phrases, make it simple, but it could be more. What a good idea. That's one. That makes sense. Have you ever seen a lot of men teachers? They're always asking their audience, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. They're looking to get a boost of their testosterone. You see, they'll say, does that make sense? So don't wait for them to ask. Just say, well, that's a good idea. That really makes sense. Oh, you're right about that. You see, these are positive messages that trigger testosterone. They're messages that says you're a success. A smile, an authentic smile, is really saying he's a success. Appreciation. And so what you want to do is give him opportunities to do things for you, which is why romance is men doing things for women. So when he says, what do you want to do? You should let him know what you want to do. If you say to him, it's okay, what do you want to do? And he'll tell you, and you'll do that. And he won't bond with you. He bonds when he does something for you that's meaningful. And also he'll bond even more if he does something for you that he doesn't really want to do, doesn't really like to do, but he'll do it for you. And then you're so happy about it. You see, if you look at men, it's like men do challenging work and their self-esteem goes up. Men get paid for doing nothing, a la a child of a rich parent. They usually are spoiled, can't make a commitment, become drug addicts, and become addicted to porn, and they're passive. So this is, you want the man to sort of win you over, and you should back off from trying to win him over. Now, if you try to win him over, he'll like it, but he doesn't bond with you. As one cartoon said, is it really true, as she's talking to the therapist, is it really true that if I have sex right away with a man, he'll like me less? And you say, well, partially. He'll like you less, but he'll like himself more. It's going to be bored.
That's good. True.
So he has to do something to get in there, so to speak. And it's so much more meaningful to him. And you don't want to lead him on and everything, but at the same time, and I'm not talking about playing games, I'm talking about being authentic to yourself, because quite often we lose our authenticity if we're a people pleaser. To the extent that your father wasn't available to you, either you're not interested in men, which is not the people listening to this, or you're a people pleaser. It naturally happens. And another sign, if you're an extreme people pleaser, because your dad was really not available to you, you might have the tendency to get turned on right away to the wrong men. And if you have a pattern of that, of getting turned on right away to men that you don't know and don't know you, that's fantasy. That's not real. That's the same thing as men being turned on to porn. Mm-hmm. It's all just an illusion. So it's like, really, you want to test the man before you let it become more intimate with him by revealing yourself first mentally. You want to share your thoughts. And so that's step 2. Once you're making a man feel comfortable with positive comments like, what a good idea, that makes sense, well, you're right about that. Then when he's talking about something, then you start practicing having a different point of view if you do, and never hold back. You see, people pleasing is always trying to agree with others and say what they want to hear. Don't do that. You see, the more authentic you are, and sometimes that's called, people would say, oh, you're being hard to get. We're not talking playing games here. We're just saying being honest, but do it in a way that will work. So that would look like having a different point of view after first telling him what a good idea he has, and then saying, I have a different point of view on it, and expressing your point of view with no attachment to trying to change his point of view. See, that's the thing that is the failure of dating, is the failure of marriage, is that we can be different. Differences actually create attraction. And we don't have to have sameness. And this is the wrong direction we're all going in. We're minimizing our gender differences, for example, or even in the dating process, we're trying to please him and giving up our truth and our authentic feelings. But so much of the time when, I hear women who haven't been able to sustain a relationship with a man, and I say, well, tell me some of the things that go on, or I might be counseling them. And they just feel like they have license to say whatever they feel. And you just don't, in any setting, you feel what you feel and you speak what's appropriately true to you, and take into consideration how that might sound to the other person. And you can't just throw negativity out there as well. You've got to be very careful about being respectful and appreciative of the other person, being conscious of how what you're saying is going to sound to them, and finding a way to say it in a way where you can be truthful and at the same time not sound critical, not sound demanding, not sound high maintenance, but being authentically yourself. So it's a dance here. It's called maturity. It's nuance. And the simplest technique of nuance is, before you say whatever you think or feel, pad it, put a buffer on it. It's like a buffer, it's like, well, I can see why you think this, and that's a good idea completely. I just have a different experience. And so I feel this and this and this, or I think this and this and this. As I'm thinking of good little tips for you as well, never ask a man how he feels. It's just ask him what he thinks. And when you feel, you go to estrogen land, and estrogen can lower testosterone in men, or you might get a guy who just goes, and he says nothing to say, and you want to create conversation and connection. All you have to do is say, well, what do you think about that? He'll have an answer right away. And particularly when you say, how do you feel? For many men, if they have nothing to say, or they don't know how to say it. And for women, you say, what do you think? And immediately he'll connect with you. And that's what you're needing the most, is to feel connection. And he needs to feel connection to get to know you as well. He just connects by, what does he think? And you appreciating what he thinks. He, on the other hand, I'd be telling him, be sure to explore how she feels, and be attentive to how she feels, and be validating to how she feels, and being careful not to try to interrupt her with solutions. Now, reason I say that, women, is because you'll be talking to a guy. He doesn't know everything I'm teaching here. He's not trained. So you'll be talking, and he's going to talk over you. And you're going to, oh, another guy talking over me. But you have to realize he doesn't realize he's talking over you. He doesn't realize he's telling you, oh, don't worry about that. He's like a fireman. Get out of the house. I'll solve it. He wants to get the solution. That's going to build his testosterone. And you could easily take that as like, he doesn't want to hear me. He doesn't respect me. He thinks I couldn't come up with that solution myself. I remember the beginning of my marriage with Bonnie, she was complaining about her job. And I said, oh, honey, you should just quit that job if you don't like it. She looked at me like, of course I like my job. And of course I know I can quit my job when I want. Then I'm thinking, well, why are you telling me about how bad your job is? So we understand that, you might call it chit chat, you can call it sharing feelings, however you want to do it. But it's a way of connecting and relating to each other in different ways. Men do not instinctively understand that. And the men that are really good at that, they're going to overtalk you. And they're oblivious of how they're throwing the polarity off in the relationship. And then you'll be, oh, he just cares about himself, or he's so needy. He's so self-obsessed. So when he's talking, and you're at the same time training him to be that way by showing interest and what are you feeling and why else do you feel that way? And you'll keep asking him. It's amazing how good women are at interviewing. They can just get into, because they want to feel that connection. There's two ways to connect. And this is a wonderful metaphor. It's very, very primal. Here's a poker and here's a hole. Okay. And this is how we connect, right? We all understand that. Now, I can be this and connect with you that way, or I can be this and you can connect with me that way. But that's going against your biological hormone system. And what that means, I haven't explained it, is when you're listening, if you're sharing over here and I'm listening, what am I doing? I'm going deeper and deeper into you. I'm penetrating you. So when a man is listening to you, he's actually going on his male side and connecting to his own female side through you by relating to you. That's what you want to create. If you're over here as the female going to his male side, then he's going to go to his female side. And where does his male side go? He can't connect to his male side through you.
Right.
Man. So there's a wisdom, there's a power of heterosexual relationship where he gets to grow. And this is my experience. I've never heard anybody teach this because nobody's a gender master. They haven't misspent 40 years of their life teaching gender. So, this is like really understanding men is to realize men can go to their female side and whine and complain and have addictions. When a man have addictions, it's low testosterone and always high estrogen. They're going, see, the estrogen is produced when you're dependent on something outside yourself to feel good. You're dependent on something outside yourself to give you pleasure. That's all estrogen stimulating. Now, I want estrogen. I just need to have a lot more testosterone. If I don't have a lot more testosterone, then I become addicted. I become overly dependent on things that aren't good for me. I also have negative emotions. All negative emotions in men are when their estrogen levels are surging and their testosterone is low. When a man has high testosterone, he can also have high estrogen as long as it stays his authentic level of testosterone. That's a romantic man. See, a romantic man is, I'm doing business. I'm mainly doing my male side. I'm mainly doing testosterone. You're not always thinking, I love this person.
Right.
Well, but I'm not in love with him and share my life with him, right? So I'm on my male side, but I anticipate coming home to my wife and my family, or if I'm single, I'm going on a date. So just anticipating that keeps me human and in terms of having testosterone and some estrogen in my body. And this is what we need. Relationships help men become more. What I told Bonnie when I married her, I said, after a few months, I said, you've given like a color to my life. I wasn't even aware my life was like black and white, it was solving problems. But women bring a whole bouquet of flowers and colors and look at the little things that we go on walks and she'd be loving nature. Now I love nature. It grew on me. And what that means, and this is the point I was just making, through relating with her while she was seeing me as a successful husband. All right. So she's seeing me as a successful husband. So my testosterone is high. And I'm listening to her and connecting with her and doing things for her because she has different needs for me, like sex, going slow in sex, being attentive in sex, being affectionate in sex, saying things like, I love you, you're so beautiful. See, men will say that once and they don't know you say it every time. Men are like a caveman when it comes to sex or animal, whatever. You need to once you get to a more intimate level in the bedroom, you want to be able to have conversation. Otherwise, men are just lost in the lower part of their brain. But it goes to, do you love me? Do you like me? Tell me what you like. Oh, I really enjoy this. A little conversation and sex can keep him in his human side while he's also making love to you. It's a much richer whole experience. So there's so much about through relationship, a man can find his softer side, we'll call it that way, his vulnerable side, his emotional side, his tender side, his loving side. He can find it if he feels successful. If he doesn't feel successful in the relationship, then he goes over to his tender, loving side. And for a little while, that's good. But his male side's going weaker and weaker and weaker. And then he becomes addicted to negative emotions. He gets addicted to drugs, of course, and porn. He become overly addicted to these things. And he just gets passive. So you see what's happening in the younger generation so much, all this passivity, because the masculinity on our planet is so much weaker. The young 21-year-olds, their testosterone levels are 20% lower than 30 years ago. Wow. This is a phenomenon that's happening today. And we need to build men up. We've been building women up, and that's good. Women need to have freedom and support. Now we have to learn how to use that power that you have, women, to provide the kind of support that will bring forth the power in a man. Just to real briefly point out another gender difference. And again, these are always extremes to be able to talk about it. As human beings, we are a blend of both. But when men go too feminine, then that's when you feel they're needy, they're overly emotional, they're too demanding, they're irritable, or they lose interest in you. Okay, so part of when a man goes too far to his female side, he doesn't have the masculine confidence to bond with you. Instead, he ends up just feeling dependent on you for pleasure and sex, and now he's on his female side. So he'll go off and lower testosterone. He needs a new woman that will give him a bump, because a new relationship does stimulate a bump in testosterone in men. That's all about dopamine. Most people now know dopamine gives you pleasure and motivation and so forth, and clarity and focus, all these kind of good things from dopamine. And newness, that, meet a new woman, a new challenge will give you a spike of dopamine, and that will raise his testosterone temporarily, which is why porn, for example, men who do a lot of porn, they have statistics on them. They'll last 8 minutes, the whole thing. They go online, it's 8 minutes of porn and they're done. And it's what's very funny is these hotels have porn in them. And they say, oh, here's our porn prices, but you can get unlimited porn the whole night through. You can have for additional fee. They know that it's going to be 8 minutes and it turns off. Okay, That's how it can last, and that's to find it, to do it, and to be done with it. And rarely do they go back to the same woman. And that's because they didn't bond with a real person, first of all. And second, they didn't bond mentally. They don't feel supported mentally. They don't give support mentally. Having conversation, who are you? What do you think? How do you relate to the world? What are some of your life experiences? How are you? What are your values? This is all bonding with, resonating with someone, and you like them. And ironically, you like them because they're different from you. Now, that's very interesting, because you look at, there was a funny Seinfeld episode once, where Seinfeld, is always looking for love, and he finds this woman and they're in this great relationship. He's talking to George and he says, we broke up. He says, what? You broke up? I thought you really liked her a lot. He says, yeah, she can finish every joke. We never argue. We're just alike. But then I realized I don't want to be with myself all the time. That's why I want to be with a relationship.
Right.
Who awakens inside of us something different from who we are. In a sense, men sort of have a built-in selfishness, which is, I have to take care of myself so that I can take care of others. So that's what really it's about. It's like, if you really look at it from a higher point of view, who are the men who dedicate themselves to the army mainly and be selfless in that way? They give their lives for their family. They do the dirty jobs. They do the difficult jobs. This is masculinity, because that's what builds testosterone. But you also, before you can give to others, you have to first give to yourself. That's the old thing on the airplane, before you put the mask on your child, you have to put the mask on yourself first. And men are very good at that. We have an instinct that says, okay, do I have what I need to get to my goal? And women often see that as selfishness, not understanding that man who wants to take care of himself, actually, it doesn't mean he's selfish, but he does need to have a job to do. So you have to keep giving men jobs to do. If they don't have a job to do, or job instructions, which is part of what my books provide, is he doesn't know what to do. When he doesn't know what to do, testosterone goes down, estrogen goes up. And so he doesn't have motivation. He becomes passive. Then he goes to something that will give him a burst of testosterone, which would be depending on porn, or depending on alcohol, depending on watching TV. Oh, and another one is to playing the games now,
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of that is fine. That's called relaxation time. But ultimately what builds testosterone is when my choices, my decisions, my behaviors contribute to others, and I did it. So that's a sense of independence. Independence produces testosterone. Dependence produces estrogen. Now, I know a lot of women go, whoa, I don't want to be so dependent on a man. That's not a good thing. No, to be fully dependent on somebody is not a good thing. That's why we have the potential today to have the best relationships ever. As women can be more financially independent, then they can balance that with the part of them that wants to be dependent on another for the bonus. Men, think of men as dessert. And while if I said to women, if I told a bunch of men in front of women, men, just think about your wife as dessert, some women would be a little offended by that. But you say to an audience, which I do a lot of audiences, women, just think about men you're the main meal. You have your life. And what a man does is he's dessert. Think of him as just dessert. And all the men go, yeah, give me, don't put it all on me. Just let me do the good stuff, so to speak, which is provide a higher level of happiness. So the theme that men would love to hear from you is that you're a happy woman, you're a fulfilled woman, but you're happier spending time with him. You're happier with him. See, that's what he needs to hear, is that you can be happy, but you can be happier with him. And there's a million ways to demonstrate that, but there's a million ways not to demonstrate that, is when you put too much on a man to make you happy, because you're unhappy and you make him responsible. I'll say it again. When you're unhappy and you make him responsible, you're going to knock down his testosterone. When you're unhappy and he makes you happy, yes, his testosterone will go up. But a healthier version of it is you're going to be more fulfilled in your life, and you look to him for maybe 1/10 of your happiness. But it's the best part of it. It's the extra. It's the growth part. It's to grow in love through intimacy and through sharing and through connecting. And to keep in mind that as you become deeper in love, because some of you are dating a guy and you're getting closer, getting married, and you want to, how do I get him to marry me, whatever. Patience, but also to know sometimes you have to tell him, I'm on a clock here. For some of you on a clock, and I love you. I wish it could be you, but it doesn't look like you're interested in that. And I'm not going to make you wrong for that. And I'm not going to pressure you in now, but I just want you to know that I'm starting to close down, and I want more than anything for it to be you, but I also have other things I need. And if I want to have a child, or I don't want to wait around for you, I'm going to move on, even though I think you're the best catch in the world. So you see, you have to say both things, and then you have to give it some space for him to make a decision on his own to do something. Because you don't want to be the one who said he should do something, and he doesn't want to be the one that you said you should do this. It should be always people's choice, but you have to inform him, and you do it in such a way that always makes him feel that he's a great guy. Because that's the key to a man being attracted to you,